This conference will now be recorded.
All right, well, welcome out today to this class on Microsoft Word. We are excited to go through some of these points with you. Thanks for joining us. This class is offered by Believe, and the website is at believeis.com. We believe in building good in the world and try hard to promote that here. So we have a number of people willing to share some information that they have and try and help others. So this is one of the trainings that's available. There are other trainings available that you can look at as well, either ones that will be offered live or that you can review through a recording. Today, though, we'll be going through Microsoft Word. And at any point for those participating, if you have questions, if you aren't following things, getting lost, don't hesitate to speak up, to say something. We'd really like to make sure that we help you get where you need to be with it. So the goal today is to learn a few tips about how to make documents look more professional. And so we have a document here that we're looking at that is just a basic one that people might type up. And we'll go through some things with it today to help it look better and to be able to make it so that you can make documents that look really good and solid. So first, typically, one recommendation is when you have a title to a document, it's good to offset it in some form or another. And so you can take the Microsoft Word here and you can choose to center. Control is the shortcut for that. That's a common one that people know to center, but it's often one that gets overlooked. In addition to that, though, it is helpful you can either bold it, you can italicize it, do something to your heading that helps it get set apart. With that, you can also make the one a little bit bigger as we go through. Obviously, if it gets too big, it starts to look funny. But you pick something that looks good to you with what you are working on. And then it's helpful to have an offset subtitle as well that is a little different somehow, whether it's underlined, italicized, made bold. Again, those bold, italics, underline are up here. The shortcuts are Control-B, Control-I, and Control-U as well for those. One thing I've found that really helps in a title is to use small caps. Right now, the first two letters are capitalized, but if you use small caps, you can get to that on the font section here. And you go over to this little arrow next to font. Click on font, and it gives you options here for different effects in your text. And one of those is small caps. You can click on that. And what that does is it will capitalize each letter, and it helps set it apart as a title. But it produces them in smaller ones for the ones that's not capitalized. So M and W are capitalized, so they go bigger. The others are smaller capitalizations there. The shortcut key for that is Control-Shift-K. I use that one on quite a few documents to make a small cap title. So those are just some of the very basics to look at. It helps differentiate heading levels. There are ways in Word. They have this section up here called Styles, and you can pre-format a number of these styles to do that, so that you only have to come in and click on it, and it will apply the formatting to what you're typing. If you want to get into formatting styles, you click on this down arrow here, and you can choose to different ones here, or you can get into some of the more some more options there. We won't go into that fully today. If you have questions on that, we can talk about that offline. But sometimes people like to set a certain style for a heading, and if they use that repeatedly in a document or commonly in what they do, you can just set that style so that it's an option. Here again, if you click on this down arrow, the second down arrow on styles, it lets you create a style. And this is where you come in, you say modify, and you can choose what's happening. And then again, if we want small caps, if we want Times New Roman, if we want a bold, we can put all that in, call our style 1 or small caps or whatever we want, and then say okay. And then if we want that later, we would only have to click on it up here to apply that formatting again. But so those are the first 2 steps there. On the third step, on keep formatting consistent, I just wanted to show you this list here. If you look at the list, there are inconsistencies throughout it. This is, I'd say, an extremely common thing that happens in creating documents for people that go through and make lists or that have headings. It's very common, for example, to have someone put a period after the end of one, but not after the end of another one, or to capitalize a letter in a heading, but then not capitalize the letter here. And so typically when you draft a document, it's wise to go through and say, okay, I've chosen to either end my list with a period here or without one. And depending on what you're doing, the audience you're doing it for, there might be different reasons for each, but certainly you want to keep it consistent. You also don't want one of the headings to just be italicized while the other ones aren't. And so these are some of the things that you would go through. Again, after drafting a document, you go back through and proofread, where you say, okay, did I do all the headings the same? And in my experience for proofreading, instead of reading through the document trying to catch everything you did, just pick one issue, such as periods, and go through and identify, okay, where's a period? Oh, there's a period, take it out. Go on through, there's a period, take it out. Here's a period, take it out. Another period, and one last period. And then if I just focus on periods, I don't lose track of what I did. I tend to do better, and then I can come back through and say, okay, now I need to do capitalization the same throughout each one as well. I'm gonna keep formatting consistent. And on that one too, there's different ways to do capitalization. Some people just want to capitalize the start and nothing else, such as with add a border. Some people choose capitalization where they capitalize the words, but they don't capitalize words such as in, on, the smaller words that end between, or those don't get capitalized. Other people choose to capitalize everything like this and say insert a picture. Again, there's no right way to do it. There are certainly some ways that look bad at times, but you want to choose and be consistent on that so that you're not switching back and forth in your document. So here, just to keep it simple, we will just capitalize the first letter in these. So again, we look at that as we go through and change those. This one we would leave capitalized because Times New Roman is an actual title or name. And so that would stay capitalized there, even with our desire not to capitalize everything. But here, endnotes wouldn't be picture, table. So then the last thing is making sure that they're each the same. And so we'd switch off italics here, not leave that one italicized. Now, something that can help a page, and it's not always necessary, doesn't always help, but one option is to add a border. I find that it's common for people not to know how to stick borders on pages. So on the border option, you can go to design, the design tab up top, and click on page borders here on the side. When page borders pops up, there's a few things to know about it. One is it has these different tabs up top. The borders tab, what will happen is it will apply a border only to your paragraph if you're in borders for some reason. Sometimes it automatically loads there. So for example, if I wanted to put a border around just this text, I could select it, say page borders, border, and then choose a line style here, a border style. So let's say I choose that border style. It's showing it here in this box. You can choose to not have a top to it if you want. You can take off the top. You can leave it open on a side if you want. But then again, it says apply to paragraph or to the text I selected now. If I choose paragraph and say okay, it puts a box just around those sections and can help to set off that section. If we don't want that, we can just say undo. But again, going back to add a border, if we do page borders, we can add it to the entire page. And there's the different styles to choose from. You can make them heavier or lighter, depending on what you're looking at. You can also choose the color. Colors often can really help your document look nice. And so those are there, and this says apply to the entire document, the whole document. And we'll get a little bit more into sections in a little bit as to what sections are. But you can choose to have formatting for your first page only, for just certain sections you create, or everything but the first page. And so those are options as well that can help your document look better. For now, we'll just apply it to the whole document. Say, okay, we have a little border there. Along with the border, something that can help is to add a horizontal line in to help differentiate pieces. In Word, there are simple ways to do that. You can type dashes, a few of them, and hit enter. It'll automatically put in a thin line for you. If you undo that, you can also do equal signs and hit enter, and it puts in a double line. Now these lines can then be formatted. If you, let's see, right select on them, usually, here we go, I missed it. Where you can change the color and other things. We'll get into colors in a little bit. But those are some pieces, again, that can help a document start to look nice, is to have certain line styles in that you put in. If you want to choose horizontal lines, that's also an option when you get into the line styles. But again, we'll get to that in a little bit if we have time today. So going from there, we have this border that goes around the page. Our text can sit inside of it, and we can adjust that weight to make it thicker or smaller. We would go back to page borders to do that. We could choose, again, to have a very thick weight, say okay on that. You know, again, that might be the look, might not be the look for what we're looking at. And you can decide on that based on what you're doing. Another thing that's very helpful on making documents look nice is to have a footer. And in Word, you can get to footers just by going to the bottom of the page and double clicking, and it will open up the footer. When that happens, it sticks an extra tab up here for you called header and footer, and it gives you options inside the footer where you can start to adjust things. You get to choose heights for your footer, how far it is from the bottom. You can choose whether you want the footer to be different on odd and even pages, different on just the first page. You can choose, once you have more pages, you can choose whether you want the footers to link to the previous footer or start a new section. Again, sections can control footers, and you can have different footers even throughout your document. And so we'll look at the section some in a little bit here. But in a footer, generally, it's helpful if you want to add some basic information. You can say, you can add your web address if you're a business, put that in there. You can add a phone number perhaps for people to reach you. That helps with a professional looking document. You can maybe add in a reminder if you want about what the document is, what it's doing. If you don't want it so close to the border at the bottom, then you can add a space in there just by hitting enter. And again here, if you would like, you can also add in the ability to put a line in here as well. And that one was an underscore. I did underscore and enter, and it makes a thicker line. And then we have some of this basic information here that can appear on each page. When you're done editing a footer, you can come back to it anytime by double clicking, or you can double click outside of it or choose close header and footer. So we can close that. So the footer portion, footers can contain images that appear on each page. They can contain logos if you have a logo for your company. It's the same as a header. You can choose to make this a header up here. So this Microsoft Word that appears right here, we can actually pull this portion if we select it. We could pull that into a header. And you'll notice there, I just copied and pasted with Microsoft. And it chose to get rid of a lot of the formatting that we had on there, including the line that was there. That's common for Microsoft. And so if we undo that, we'll actually go to some of our copy and paste tips right now. If you go back to home, there's the paste button here. And if you click the down arrow, it gives you these different options where it says keep source formatting. If you choose keep source formatting, it actually keeps it the way it was when you copied it. Often what Word will do is it will strip out formatting options and just keep the text when you copy and paste. And so it's common to lose formatting unless you select this keep source formatting. If you select merge formatting, what it's doing is it's taking the existing formatting and it's attempting to make it look like the rest of your document. And so it feels that we're not using big words and things for the rest of the document, so it merges that. You can put it in as a picture where it makes an exact replica of what you copied, but you can't edit it unless you have picture editing tools. Or you can just say keep text only, and it strips it of virtually all formatting at that point. In addition, there's this paste special button where you can choose some other options here as well that get into kind of a more advanced stuff. But at the end of the day, if it absolutely won't paste for you correctly, you can choose Unformatted Text. And that can help when you're copying from PDF files or from the internet to choose the Unformatted Text option. And it can remove a lot of the issues for you that you experience. But again, here, if we make that a header, we keep the source formatting, then we can click out of it. It will be there as a header. We can delete this section of it that's there. And now this will appear on every page that we have after this. And so if we, for example, have a new page down here, it's going to appear there. And we'll have the footer here as well. And then people are reminded what your document is. So those are some of the options with headers and footers. And they can be very useful in creating a solid look to your document that stays consistent. Now in your footer, one thing that really helps documents be professional is also have a page number. Word has quite a few options for page numbers. If you go to insert, there's page number. And you can choose to insert a page number at the top of the page in the header. They have ones for just plain numbers on the left, centered on the right. You can use different accent bars. You can have it say page 1 of 1 or page 1 of 2. You can have it be at the bottom of the page with a lot of the same things. And you can even add it at the current position. Wherever you want it in the page, you can put your cursor there and have it added there. But ultimately, it's helpful to select one that matches the formality of what you're doing. And so here, if we choose, for example, this accent bar, we stick it in there. One thing to know about that is when you insert a page number, it's common for it to take out things you put in your footer already if you had it in there. So if that happens, just go up and undo it. And then you can come and say, let's select this. this information, copy it. And so then if Word does get rid of it for any reason, when you insert the page number, you still have it just to put back in. So we can put that there, and then you can add in these things. And again, this one pops up above it. If you want it to go below it, you can do that and paste it below it. And so we can delete this section here and have it be there. Here, there is a line there, so this line may no longer be necessary. So you can get rid of that. And if we close this header and footer, you can see that there's a light line. So it looks like I left a line here too. And you can have that with that line and a page number there. So that's another option, a variety of options with that for however you want to do that. But having the page numbers is generally considered a professional touch that a lot of people tend to leave off. So once you have a document like this and you want it to be professional, it's often helpful to have some kind of intro at the start. And you can add in an intro. For example, you can say, thanks for attending today's class. The following are points we discussed. If you have any questions, please reach out at the information below. Now, when you do that, Word defaults to left justification. And there's a split in people and what they feel looks good or professional. But it's common for extremely high-end documents to have full justification on that. And what that means is Word will pull, if I click on this, it's going to space out this line more because it's going to stretch it out to reach the edge of the margin that I have up here. And if you're typing significant amounts of text, it can help it be more formal. I know I definitely prefer that as a formality. Excuse me. And your introductions can get better and longer. We won't take the time to go through writing too much today because the main purpose is just to talk about some of the aspects that are used. So here,
Austin,
yep.
When you stretch the text like that, the margins on the page, what type of documents are you typically doing that on? Is it just, do you do it on every single one of them? Are you just doing it on contracts? Are you doing it based on the amount of, the volume of words that are included in the document?
Yeah, it's a good question. Typically, when I stretch the words across like that, there is more text on the page. If there's a lot of white space like this here, these aren't going to stretch across because they don't reach the edge. The line doesn't reach the edge. So even if I click on center justification, it doesn't do anything. And so you'll still, in this document, you will have all kinds of breaks across the screen going back and forth, typically anyways. So for this one, just this one here, left justification wouldn't be out of the ordinary there. The situations where I tend to put them in are any document that has multiple paragraphs in a row. If you start putting paragraphs in a row and they're not full justified like that, then the paragraph lines are going to be ending crooked across the document. Some people prefer that for reading because it makes it so the spacing's consistent. Other people prefer to have a clean, sharp line across the side that they follow along with. And so, but generally, when a document's text heavy and there's paragraphs in it extensively. But again, if this space is too big, for example, if we just said, let's just say the word was any questions together, and this is extra long, you can choose to hyphenate words. Again, this isn't an actual word, but if it were, you can put a hyphen in and it will pull it up to the first line and help reduce that space. And so if you see a line that's just really, really extensive, so for example, one of them would be if you type a website here. Websites often cause issues and breaks where it gets longer. If we took this word out too, your spacing's starting to expand quite a bit. Then with websites, it's hard to hyperlink a website. And so on websites, if they're right there, sometimes you can try and change the way you say the sentence, so the website's not right at the side, or the email address or whatever you're putting in. Or you can choose to just left justify that portion of things so that you don't have a huge long break there. But those are little formatting pieces that you look at as you go through it. And again, you would generally type your document and then you'd go back through specifically saying, I want to see how is the spacing looking? Are there any large spaces that I need to address? And it's pretty common where you can change 1 or 2 words and really help out the spacing quite a bit, so that's not too much of an issue for people. So on that, yeah, and there, if you have questions, jump in here. Just stop me on that. The font I default to as an attorney is Times New Roman. Courts still require Times New Roman or Arial font, but most people say that the world is sick of reading Times New Roman and Arial documents. It was the Microsoft Word standard for quite a while. Now Microsoft Word standard, I think, is Calibri, and it's not one that I love, but you can. There's a lot of great fonts to use, and it is wise to pick a font that matches your, just your style of what you're looking for in the document. And again, this is the Microsoft default right now. They have a light version as well. If you're trying to make something for a wedding perhaps, or something nice, you can use something cursive like this. Georgia is a pretty common one for online reading. It's a font that's preferred for people on a screen. Fonts like Bookman Old Style are good for books. They help space things out, make it easy to read when it's printed. So you can do some research on that, but again, Word just has this whole selection. And another good one that I really liked is called, I don't know how to say it, but Garamond. And it's a nice font. So we'll switch to that one. It's a little bit smaller, so you can fit a little more text on, but it has a nice feel to it. And with that, when you have a heading, it never hurts to put your heading in a separate font as well to change that. And you can have something nice to help set apart the heading there too. And so we'll just change this to something like that. And again, those don't match perfectly. We're going through this quickly, but you can take some time to make sure that those match, that they look good, and that you are able to make something nice there. And again, a lot of people do really notice Times New Roman. There are quite a few font junkies out there, and they do like it when you take a minute to pick a good looking font for that. So on this list we have here, this is a very common thing I see in documents I edit, where people don't use automatically numbered lists. And so here you can tell it's not automatically numbered because I can put my cursor on the screen and move all around this one. I can just hit backspace, the one disappears. And so Word will let you create an automatically numbered list. The reason for that is, let's say I forgot something and I realize, oh, in number 12, I need to put this in there. If I hit enter, then I would have to type 13 and then start to go through and change each one of these by hand. It's a long process. I'll undo that. And instead of that, you can just select it here. and tell Word, come up here to the numbering and create a numbered list, and just click on that, and it will convert that to one that's now automatically numbered. You can see it has some formatting it prefers, it indents it a little bit and moves these over. And these are things we can change for however it makes sense for what you're working on. But it will do that. And so if I come back down to 12 and I need to add something in, I can enter. And now it makes that 13 and it automatically updates these other ones here. Now I know it's an automatically numbered list because when I click on it, my cursor doesn't go around the numbers individually. They get highlighted and the whole list gets highlighted where it's telling me it's an entire list together. You can see here how Word didn't perfectly convert everything. It did recognize this was a subheader, but it kept 5A there. So sometimes when you convert something after the fact, you have to go through and clean up a little bit of it like that. And you can see here how there's an A and a B. This should be A again. But if you click on it, Word has associated these two together and it's automatic items. And so you can right click on that and say restart at A, tell it it's a new list. And then it will change that to A. And then if I were to add something else here, it would be B. So that's one way to do this. And again, if you're down here and you're past the end of your list and you realize, oh, I need to add something to it, Word will often recognize the list. So if I typed 20 period and hit tab, it just pulled it into this list. It made it a part of it. It has the smart recognition. It won't do that every time for you perfectly, but it did in this case, and it will often do that for you. Sometimes that's frustrating if you type 20 and hit tab and you didn't want it in the list. And if that's the case, they have these autocorrect options. And you can just say undo automatic numbering. I just wanted that 20 by itself for some reason. And then it's just a 20 and it's not associated with the list. But these lists are super helpful as you go through and edit documents later to be able to have all those numbers update automatically. If you're trying to update numbers on your own, it's extremely common to miss something and again, ruin the professional look of your document. So that is one of the things to be aware of there. I guess on formatting after that, you can see up here, it's helpful to show your ruler bar. This doesn't automatically appear on a lot of people's Word. So if you don't see this ruler up here, you can go to View and you can click on Ruler. I highly recommend Ruler being on. I use it all the time for formatting documents. And what Ruler does is it lets you see where Word is putting these indents. So for example, if I wanted to move all these back over to the left side of the page, I can click on this bottom box here and just drag this over and it moves them all over. Or if I wanted to move them in further, I can pick it and move them over here, inside more together. You can move parts of it separately, or if I click on just the arrow up here, then you can space them out further away from things, bring it closer to things, however you want to format that. And you'll notice here that when I moved everything together, it bumped the A's in as well. And so if you do that all at once, you often need to go back through and pull these over a little bit so that they offset. Like that. But again, you have this control up here, which is very nice thing to have on the ruler to be able to move those and look at what Word is doing. Sometimes Word will automatically format things, makes people frustrated, but you can change a lot of that through access to these indents up here. This is also your ending indent where Word stops the line. And for example, if we came up here, we could pull that over and stretch that line further to the side. But that is what determines where we end on the right side. So if you're going to make a block quote in a section, let's say underneath Utilize Tabs, we want to have a block quote. You could pull this in here And you could pull this in an inch as well. And then if you type a quote, let's say, for example, that NASA's favorite saying is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Now that one, you can see here how it did this edge starting here and ending here. And this one is left justified. So there will be a little space left there if you kept going. If you want that full justified, you can add that. And it would stretch it. I guess it was actually at the edge anyways, but it stretches it to the edge for everything you put in. So block quotes are a great way where you bring them in like that in a document. It's a great way to offset something there, and is a pretty helpful professional looking thing to do as well. So on that, one thing that comes up, if you have a slightly longer document with a few sections to it, it can add a really professional touch to add a table of contents. And the reason I go through the table of contents is because it will help us look at a few of Word's features, including section features. So let's say that we want our first page to look different than the other pages. We want it to be a table of contents page. This is currently our only page, and if we realize, oh, I need to put in something before it, then we have a few options. We have, if you go to the Insert tab, what Word calls page breaks. And so I can say, insert a page break right there, and that will just bump everything down to the next page and leave me with a fresh page here to start with. Again, if we go back to, I guess actually we won't do that yet. So page breaks will undo that though, because there's another kind of break. If you go to layout, it's unfortunate Word puts these in two different sections, but if you go to layout and then breaks, it has the same page break that we just did, but it also has what's called a section break. And there's different types of section breaks. There's next page, continuous breaks. These are the two I use the most. A next page section break says that you want a page to be its own section. And when something's its own section in Word, you can format it differently than other pages in the document. So you can have formatting specific to that page, such as a footer or a header or other things that would apply there. Continuous means that you're creating sections, multiple sections within a page. You insert a continuous page break to say, I want a new section to start here. These are used by Word for things like creating columns. If you were to add columns into the middle of a page, but you only wanted it for a portion of the page, then you would use continuous breaks for that. But for a table of contents, we want that to be its own page. So we would just say, insert a next page section break. It bumps it down just like the page break did, and it gives us a blank page up here to insert a table of contents. So when we're up here, something that's very helpful in Word, another secret tip for formatting, is if you're at your Home tab, they have this button here called Show Hide. And if you click on that, it will actually show you formatting that exists. And it shows you right here, the section break exists right here. This is where Word codes it in. It won't show that to you usually. And you need to type before that. So your cursor has to be before that. So we can say enter. This is the enter sign. It means that there's been a break, an enter break put in there. And we can add in, let's say that we center this. We say, we make it bold, and we say table of contents. Then enter. We'll full justify our table of contents. We will increase the font here, make a nice size font. And once we're here, let's say that we have different, let's just say it's similar to a book. And we have, actually, let's say it's more a memo or a summary you're providing a company. So we could say that we have our introduction, we have our executive summary, we have our analysis, and we have our recommendations, and then finally conclusions. So what will commonly happen is if people want to, for example, have a book style where there's a page number over here on the right, they will often hold the period key down, go over and say 1. That is, again, one way to do it, but it becomes difficult. And so for this situation, what I recommend is that you just select your table of contents, and then we go to paragraph. This opens the paragraph settings here, this little arrow. And in paragraph, there's a section called tabs. You open up tabs, and it asks you where you want a tab stop to be. And what a tab stop is, when you hit your tab button, where it jumps you to on the page. And so we can say, if you're trying to create a nice looking table of contents, the page ends right now at 6.5, 6.5. And it's typically recommended to just do slightly below that. So we would say tab stop position of 6.49, so we want our tab to jump to there. We would make it a right one, where our content is going to align on the right with that tab stop position. And we can put in a leader, and we can put in these periods as leaders like that. So we click on 2 and it has periods. You can have a straight line, you can have dashes across, and then I say set. So I just set a tab for each of these. So if I say okay, you'll see now that there's this little right tab arrow or box that appears here. It might be difficult to see, but it's a right angle. It's a square or square corner of a square that sits there. And it's now our right tab. So if I'm on introduction, and I'll take off the show hide for a minute so it's a little cleaner, and I just press the tab button, it makes that nice line for me. And then I can type in whatever I need to here, page number wise. I can say it's on page 1, for example. If it's on page 1001, I type and Word just pushes those over and automatically formats that, but keeps it super consistent. If my executive summary is on page 3, I just again have to hit tab. Analysis is on page 6. Recommendations are on page 22. And conclusions are on page 25. Then if I ever need to update that, I can. It's not a problem. But I have this nice clean line across. It ends clean there. And that tab stop helps us with that. So tabs can be used for all kinds of things. If we go down here, you can see here when you show your ruler, it gives you this little box here as well for tabs. I can have left tabs. This is a center tab. This is a right tab. And then it gets into all other kinds of tabs here. If you click through them, you can choose new indents and new things. But if I want to put a left tab in, let's say that if I hit tab, I want to go over 1 inch. I can just come over to the ruler and click on 1 inch. And it will insert, if it's working, which it might not be at the moment. It typically inserts a tab there. So if I hit my tab button, now it goes over a solid inch instead of the ½ inch that it normally does. The default's ½ inch for tabs. And I can type something there about thanks for joining and have it there specifically. If I then want to have text that corresponds on the other side, so for example, if we had a signature line, it's common that we want another signature to start at a clean place if you're making signature lines in a document or other form fields like this. And I can go up and say, okay, another tab here at 4, click on that, And the next time I hit tab, it just jumps me over, and I have that clean break there. So if I hit enter, I hit tab, I can type a name here. And then if I hit tab again, it takes me automatically to that other spot. And I keep things lined up there. And so no matter how many times I go down, if I hit tab, it's going to pull me to those two spots. And it keeps that nice line with it. So those are just some simple ways to do that. If you don't like those there, the way to typically get rid of them is to go to paragraph settings, say tabs, and then you can see there's a tab stop at 1 inch, 4 inch. If I don't want them, then I can say clear. Click on it and say clear. Okay, that's now gone, and it's reverted now to, there's still the right tab there, so it formats it that way when I hit tab. If I want to get rid of that, you can see in your formatting, these arrows show where you've hit the tab button. So here I can say, oh, I hit tab there. All I have to do is say backspace, and that's completely gone. But again, it's because it pulled this right tab that's still hanging there. We didn't clear that one. So if I hit tab, it's going to push it over, but from here. And so you can have subsets to your table of contents or things that pull over nicely like that. So that's just a quick overview on tabs. And again, when we show hide here, we have this section break, next page. And because the section break is here now, if we go to our footer and we come down to the second footer, the second page is now on a new section. And so it gives us this option of linking to the previous one or not, or doing a different first page. If I click on different first page, then it keeps that formatting for the first page in the footer, but pulls it out for the second page. If I take that off, then it's still there. I can choose to change my footers on the second page. Say, let's not link to previous anymore, and I can have something separate here to say something like, remember to believe. And then that one appears on the second page while the contact information is on the first page. So those are some of the basic options. Since we're almost out of time, I will jump quickly to inserting a picture. If you want to put a picture in here, it's common for people to struggle knowing how to do that. So if we say we want to add a picture in, we can just make it me for the minute. I'm there. I can drag it here, make it bigger or smaller, but the biggest problem for people is understanding how to get text to work around it. Sometimes they want text on the side of it. Sometimes they want to move it. You can see I'm trying to drag it here, and Word doesn't move it very well. It only moves it to certain places, but it won't move it to the right here, for example. It won't pull it there right now. So what you do with the picture, there's this picture format tab up here, and you need to choose, there's a couple different options. Has a position where it chooses how to wrap text around it. And this will influence what it's doing to your picture. There's also this wrap text button where you choose what text does with the picture, whether it wraps around it like a square. You can see here, square allows text to be on the side. If I say tight, it will wrap it around really tight through the picture. Through can make it so the text actually goes behind the picture if I move it correctly. I can say top and bottom. I can say behind text and have it just there floating behind the text. If you do it behind text, it gives you the most freedom to move something. And I can drag this now anywhere I want on the page, and Word will drop it there as it stands without a lot of formatting headaches. Obviously, you would have to make sure that text isn't there. But once it's there, if I want to change that, I can wrap text and say, let's do square here. And now you can see what happened here. Levels, the word levels went down because it got too close to this, and so Word bumped it down. So the the formatting is now applying up to the edge of the picture with the picture in there. And that tab, that picture format tab, will disappear when you click off the picture. And that's why you have, again, you click on the picture, picture format appears. You can do things such as make it grayscale to match your document. You can make the picture blue to match your document. Word has a lot of options. If it's an older picture, you can do a fair amount of different things to it to make it look good. You can even choose to remove the background. And Word has quite a bit of picture editing options for sure. But some of the other options for making your document look nice would be to add in colors. So if you format, your header here, your main document, you can choose font colors. Choose one that matches that can help. But just choosing a few things like that can really help to start to make a document look nice. And as you go through, just picking a simple picture to put in, you can add it again to the header so it appears on every page, or just once. Putting your logo in there can be very helpful. And so we didn't get to turn this into a great looking document because there's not enough text here. It was more just to go through some of these things. But our 1 hour is up now. So if any of you, let me know if you have questions for me that you'd like to go through, anything you'd like to be able to do in Word that you've always wondered about.
Hey, Austin, will you be able to send out the recording of this as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, very helpful. Thank you for your time on this.
No problem. Thanks for participating.
Thanks, Austin. I'm going to use your tabs that you showed me.
You what?
Never seen that before.
Yeah, the tabs get super helpful. You can do a lot of formatting with them, so they're good to play with. Okay, but thanks for joining today. This recording will be available. Believe has a YouTube channel, so the recording will be on that. But I can send out that link for sure to those who are on it.
Okay, perfect. And I can even pull it off the YouTube channel as well. So.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. Good to see everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Austin.
See you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.